Today, Chevrolet set a world record with the Corvette ZR1X, running the quarter mile in 8.67 seconds at 159 miles an hour, and running a 0 to 60 time of just 1.68 seconds. So, how is this possible? In today's video, we're gonna explain exactly how. We're also gonna talk about how this record is significantly more important than you or I think it is, and also discuss, am I actually going to get one by the end of the video? I could string it along and try to game the YouTube algorithm and put the clip of the car running the quarter mile at the end of the video, but we're gonna put the clip right now so you can see the actual world record pass. This thing is ridiculous. So how is it possible that this production car starting at just under $210,000 is able to run the quarter mile in 8.68 seconds? Well, remember, the ZR1, which it shares the same motor with, has a 5.5 liter twin turbocharged V8 with the largest turbochargers ever fitted on a production car, making 1,064 horsepower. The X in ZR1X stands for the all-wheel drive, even more powerful, more limited version of the ZR1, and it makes 1,250 horsepower. That's thanks to the electric drive unit on the front axle from the E-Ray, although it's juiced up a little bit, adding 250 pounds to the curb weight, but the overall performance is absolutely insane. Now, in this normal ZR1, because it's rear-wheel drive only, they limit the torque a bit in first, and midway through second gear, it starts ramping up the torque. I'm very curious if they've got full torque off the line, because that 0 to 60 is absolutely insane. Now, why is this so significant? Well, let's look at some of the other cars that run quarter mile times in a similar vein as the ZR1X, and also talk about how this changes things going forward. Technically, the fastest car of all time in the quarter mile is the Rimac Nevera R. It'll set you back over $3 million. They're only making 40 of them, and I actually rode in it when they debuted it at Goodwood Festival of Speed, and it was the quickest accelerating car I've ever experienced in my entire life. The acceleration from 60 miles an hour and beyond was absolutely mind-bending. So to imagine a car that's that quick, but also produces an awesome V8 flat plane crank noise is just the coolest thing of all time. Now, in my opinion, I'm not a huge electric car guy. I know I have a daily driver that's a Plaid, and I'm pretty darn over it. I almost don't even consider the Rimac Nevera R in the running for fastest production car of all time. It's almost in its own category. We've got these Chinese hypercars that also can accelerate super fast. Let's talk about internal combustion engine powered cars. So this hybrid ZR1X actually is the fastest production car of all time in the quarter mile for $210,000. That is absolutely ridiculous. The next quickest car is a Koenigsegg Jesko Absolute with a quarter mile time of 8.77 seconds. That car will cost you well over $3.5 million, likely upwards of $5 million, and it's 1/10 of a second slower than the ZR1X. And there's a big asterisk, and this was really important in my opinion. The Jesko Absolute runs the quarter mile that quick on E85 fuel, not pump gas. It's higher octane, and you can make more horsepower than you can on 91. It likely would be significantly slower than that if it was running on 91. Now, here's a car that does run on 91, the Bugatti Tourbillon. This thing isn't even out yet. It's got 3 electric motors. It'll cost more than $5 million. It's got a V16 making 1,800 horsepower, and it runs 8.8 seconds in a quarter mile. So 0.2 of a second slower than the ZR1X. $210,000 versus $5 million. That is absolutely unbelievable. Now, the only car that comes close in an affordable way is the Dodge Demon 170, but there's like 3 asterisks on that. One, it can only set that time if you've got drag radials and you've got proper heat in the tires. I've tried to launch that thing on the street numerous times, and getting a 0 to 60 better than 4 seconds or 3.5 is nearly impossible. So it's not gonna be as practical. The second thing is it only makes that much power and runs that drag strip time on E85 once again. Now here's where things get even crazier with the ZR1X. It's got the largest production car turbos of all time at 76 millimeters. To put that into perspective, every year at Texas 2K, a drag racing event, one of my favorites, actually probably my favorite drag racing event of all time, Nissan GTRs come out and set world records every single year. Now there's a class for 68 millimeter turbo size, the stock turbo size on the Nissan GTR. 68 for the GTR, 76 for the ZR1X. How much power do you think these Nissan GTRs can make on race gas without having to abide by emission standards? Remember, the ZR1X has to pass emission standards, it's fully stock, it has a warranty, and it's running on pump gas. The GTRs make more than 2,000 wheel horsepower. In fact, some of them make 2,500 horsepower to the wheels, which is borderline about 3,000 crank horsepower, or 3 times a ZR1, or 2+ times more, significantly more than 2, than the ZR1X. And that's a 3.8 liter. The ZR1X has more displacement, 2 more cylinders, and larger turbos. So imagine, in a scenario where you get one of these things and you want to put it on the track, you rip out the cats and you turn up the boost and run it on race fuel. This thing on MS109 or an E85 blend is likely going to make 1,500, 1,600 horsepower, and the engine, I'm sure the internals are good for a lot more than that. And here's my prediction with the ZR1X. This is a new car that has reset everything you know about speed in the automotive internal combustion engine world. And it reminds me of some cars of the past, starting with the McLaren F1. It was the fastest car in the world in the 90s. It was mind-blowing, going 240 miles an hour. Fast forward to 2006, we had the Bugatti Veyron, the first 1,000+ horsepower production car, the first $1 million+ car, and it did 253 miles an hour. The ZR1X does 250 miles an hour for way less money than a Bugatti Veyron. But what the Veyron did, the McLaren F1 did, is they sparked this rat race to make the world's fastest hypercars. Then we saw the Chiron, we saw Koenigsegg coming out with that 277 mile an hour record. The Jesko Absolute trying to go and maybe going over 300 miles an hour. The Chiron Supersport over 300 miles an hour. But one car really comes to mind, and that's the McLaren 720S. When that was released in 2018, the 720S made Ferrari and Lamborghini look 10 years behind. All of a sudden, you were getting practically hypercar levels of performance for about $300,000. And to think about how much cheaper the ZR1X is than a 720S, it's been 7-8 years since that car came out is actually mind-blowing. Another car that, whether you like it or not, reset the benchmark in people's minds for speed was the Tesla Plaid. All of a sudden, for $120, or when it came out, $150,000, you could do 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds, which previously people thought street tire technology wasn't even capable of running 0 to 60s that quick. So whether you like electric cars or not, all of a sudden, the Plaid was the benchmark for cars. And we had things like the SF90, the 765 LT that once again reset the benchmark for internal combustion engine vehicles. And all of a sudden, that ZR1X is going to do the same thing. Because what is Ferrari and Lamborghini's excuse when the Corvette makes more power, is faster, and is 10 times less expensive than its hypercar? Here's another interesting data point. Recently, I watched a video it's a very good video. Hagerty makes some awesome stuff. Jason Camisa is an awesome automotive journalist. And they compared the 992 GT3 RS, the Mustang GTD, and the ZR1 around the track. This isn't even the X model, which is going to be even faster. And there's a very important distinction of the Nürburgring record that ties into what I'm saying. Randy Post set laps in all of them. Same driver, same day, same conditions, and the ZR1 was the fastest by a significant margin, and also the cheapest by a significant margin. The record set at all the tracks around the country, as well as the Nürburgring, was done by their vehicle development engineers. When I go to the Nürburgring, you realize that there are some people there that have committed their entire lives to this track and have spent 3,000, 4,000, even 5,000 laps over decades learning this track. When you go there, you realize Porsche has such a ridiculous presence, it's insane. They bought Manthey Racing, they probably have 10 buildings stationed at the Nürburgring. So obviously, when they hire the fastest drivers in the world, they've got 10 home bases at the Nürburgring, they're going to have a massive advantage. Imagine if we took one of those drivers and put them in the ZR1X, what the Nürburgring time would be. I imagine they could shave 5 to 10 seconds off that time, and it would be absolutely ridiculous. The only thing that comes close is the Mercedes-AMG 1, which is practically a Formula 1 car for the road, and it's not even street legal in America. So, am I getting one of these cars? Really cool thing happened when I reviewed it at Circuit of the Americas, the ZR1. I went out there, I drove it around COTA. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And in fact, after I got out of the car, I talked to some of the people at GM and said, hey, who's the right person to talk to? I really, truly want to buy one of these things. And they told me, hey, wait till after dinner. I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what that means, but I'll wait till after dinner. We have a nice dinner, and then they surprise us with something. They say, hey, come with us. We've got something special to show you around the corner. Now, in this nice hotel that we stayed at, they sectioned off the top of the parking garage, and they just, out of nowhere, unveiled the ZR1X to a small group of people. It was a little bit confusing at first because it looked the same as the ZR1, so I wasn't really sure what was going on, but there was a little X badge. Then they showed us that it's got upgraded 420 millimeter brakes. It's got the first ever 10 piston front carbon brakes, and it has an extra horsepower boost and all-wheel drive from the E-Ray. So then I said, okay, I changed my mind. I see why you said this. I want the ZR1X. So right now I'm in talks with GM, and I believe I'm speaking to the right people about trying to get one. Hopefully you guys can help me. It's been several months. I haven't been able to get a definitive answer. It seems semi-positive, and then I'm not sure what's going on. So if you guys can blow this video up, get this thing to 10,000 plus likes, and leave comments on Chevrolet's Instagram to let them know, actually Corvette's Instagram, to let them know Vehicle Virgins needs a ZR1X, I would be so appreciative. Imagine the content on this thing. The 60 to 130 time has got to be deep into the 3s, which is something that wasn't achievable in stock cars. It's actually crazy. I mean, the first time we started seeing 4-second 60 to 130s was the Plaid and the Chiron Super Sport and cars like that, and now we have cars in the 3s. I want that car so bad. I want to take it to all the tracks all over the country, ship it to Europe, drive it around the Nürburgring, and then eventually modify the daylights out of it. I have a feeling this thing is capable of over 2,000 horsepower, and I want to take it to Texas 2K to show in stock form, and then maybe the year after in modified form, how ridiculous and how revolutionary this new ZR1X is, because it's truly an engineering marvel. And it makes me wonder, what are all the other companies thinking? Are they actually scared of this, or are they still making excuses? Well, but it's not a Ferrari, oh, but it's not a Lamborghini. But at a certain point, that argument just goes out the window. The interior of the C8 is really, really nice. Now, I'm not gonna lie, yes, the Temerario and the Revuelto is a little bit more upscale, but this thing would blow the doors off of both of them. Yes, it doesn't have the panache to a non-car person. But to those in the know, and I think this car is going to single-handedly change how people view Corvettes. It had this long-standing period of people thinking, oh, it's the straight line car, oh, it's a cheaper Ferrari, you buy this when you can't afford a Ferrari. But they have proven for generations now that not only is it usually faster than its Ferrari counterpoint, it can go around the track faster than its Ferrari counterpoint. The interiors have gotten better, the styling has gotten better. It looks like an exotic car, it sounds like an exotic car, and it goes as fast as a hypercar. What more could you ask for? I'm actually mind blown. If they came out with this car and said it was $400,000 instead of $210,000, I genuinely believe it would still be a good deal. I am terrified to see what these things are going to be like at the dealerships after markup. I wouldn't be surprised at all for the first little bit for these to be over $500,000, honestly. And then eventually they'll come down, and perhaps in 2 years or something, they'll be closer to MSRP. I don't want to pay $500,000 for one. I'll let somebody way, way richer than me do that. But if I can get one at MSRP, it's a done deal. So I am hoping, Corvette, please, I really, really want a ZR1X. So with that, the ZR1X is probably the craziest car in the last decade to come out, legitimately. It's resetting the benchmark for what's possible in terms of speed with really no compromises. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you next video.